My name is Carolyn Woods. This is how you say my name in sign language, Miss Woods. And I teach ASL here at Chatham High School. About 6 years. I started in 2005. I was teaching staff sign language at a school for the deaf so that they would be able to communicate better with their students.
I decided to take sign language because I hope to work with disabled kids in the future, and if they're nonverbal or they are deaf, they do speak sign language, so I thought it was important to have that.
No, I also taught deaf students. Preschool through 6th grade. I taught in Brooklyn and also in New York City in Manhattan, and also deaf education. It is hard to teach students because I want them to do their best and live up to their potential. You also have to be very creative and make ASL make sense to them. And there are some communication barriers, which is actually why I got involved into teaching ASL in the first place, because it really opens up the doors to communication, the deaf world and the hearing world, and it kind of it's the bridge that links those two separate worlds.
My favorite part about the class is how involved Miss Woods gets us, because it immerses us in the language more, and it makes me happier to go to class knowing that I'm getting used to the language and not just learning conjugations for everything. And it's very interesting to watch how facial expressions matter and what words are and all that stuff.
I am interested in American Sign Language. I am a former world language teacher, and I taught Spanish at Chatham High School for several years before I became an administrator. And I think American Sign Language is a unique language offering that enables students to almost instantly, immediately, when they graduate, be able to put it into use with folks who are deaf or are hearing impaired.
I'm thrilled to see that happening. The state finally recognizes American Sign Language as a true language, and that's really important because it spreads awareness about deaf culture and the beautiful language that we use. It's also sad that some people think that deaf people are less than, that people still think that deaf people can't drive. So I think it's really important to spread awareness. So it makes me really happy that schools are now adding American Sign Language as a language.
I think more students should take ASL and learn it because it's become quite useful in just my daily life. I'll be out somewhere where I can't really hear someone, at an amusement park or something, and then if they know sign language, I can just sign to them and we'll just decide where to get food, or if we want to go on this ride or that ride. And it's become really quite useful.
I think my favorite thing is inspiring students. For example, a couple of weeks ago, a student emailed me and said, "Miss Woods, I was on a train going into New York City, and there was a woman on the train who looked very confused. And she had her ticket, and she was showing the ticket to somebody, and the woman signed, 'I'm deaf,' and the student said, 'Oh, I know a little bit of sign language.' She signed back to her, and they were communicating, and the student was able to help her. I think what happened was the train was rerouted to Hoboken, or she needed to go to Hoboken, but she was on the wrong train, and the student was able to help her figure out where she was and how to get her back on the right train. And the student said it was the first time that they thought they were signing up for ASL just because it was a cool language, but that it was actually useful and helped in the real world.
I think having a deaf teacher has been really important for the classes learning this language, because it really immerses us in the language, and she gets us really involved in signing back to her, making sure it's correct, because she speaks the language and it's her only language, so she knows when it's right and when it's wrong and how to help us with that.
We use a lot of interactive teaching techniques. We play games. It makes learning the language fun, and it also connects with motivating them. It helps to motivate them. I also try to use their interests, their experiences, and their backgrounds. For example, we just studied singers. I asked the students who their favorite singer was, and they were kind of joking around with each other and trying to get them more involved in the process.
Well, I think Miss Woods is, number one, a role model for people who are non-hearing or hearing impaired or deaf. And I hope that students recognize that this is just another example of if a person has a difference, they can absolutely integrate and achieve and be part of the school community just like any other person could.
I really haven't worked in a purely hearing environment. And I just started working here, so it's hard to say, but I can say that the staff here is really wonderful. Some people are really learning a little bit of sign language and learning how to spell their names, and they'll wave hi to me. The administrators here also always make sure that I have complete access to everything. For example, they gave me a talkie so that if there were an emergency or the school's on lockdown, they would send a text message to the talkie that says school is on lockdown, and then I can hit the button to receive it, to receive the message. So they've been really great about that. And the superintendent, Dr. LaSousa, even stopped by a few weeks ago to make sure everything is going well and that I'm feeling comfortable here. And they're really making sure that I feel comfortable, and I feel really honored to work here. It's a great place.
To be totally honest, I was walking through the high school a week or two after she began, and happened to be going by the American Sign Language classroom and thought to myself, oh, I should stop in and make sure that the transition has been smooth and she has everything she needs to be successful. And when I entered the room, she seemed very happy and told me she was delighted to be here at CHS.
Oh yes, absolutely. My community is always really happy to see more and more people learning ASL, learning to sign. And being deaf, can be isolating because it is hard to communicate with the rest of the world. So the more hearing people learn sign language allows us to bridge those two communities together.
I just hope parents and students, in seeing a deaf teacher in our school, recognize that we're a place that is inclusive and that we want to provide an enriching experience to students, and that teachers come in all shapes and forms and viewpoints. And this is an example of a teacher with a quality that we've never had in the school before, but we're thrilled to have her, and we think she's doing a terrific job.
It's a beautiful language. It's fun to learn. And it has its own grammar structure. Many people think that, it's just you sign exactly like English, but you really don't. It's a pretty complicated language, just like French and Spanish and Chinese have their own grammatical structures. ASL is a fun language to learn. And there are a lot of perks to it as well. For example, when I go pick up my daughter at school, I'll stand outside the door, and her classroom is like right next to the door, so you can see in the door into the classroom through the window. And I'll wave to her, and she'll say, "Hi, Mommy," and then she'll say, "Mommy, what are we doing after school? Can we go to, my friend's house?" And people are like, "Oh, that's so cool! You can communicate with her through the window." And you can sign underwater. You can have conversations underwater. Even if you have food in your mouth so that you're not chewing, you can keep your mouth closed and chew and still have a conversation. Across the street or across the room, you can communicate. So there's a lot of really cool things about it, and it's fun. So I would really encourage everyone to take American Sign Language classes.